Hey there, Andrea here. I hope you're doing as good as can be. I am so excited because this podcast is all about highlighting books, summarizing books, or teaching little elements of writing and publishing. But it is so exciting when I get the opportunity to have actual authors on the show because they put so much love, attention, wisdom, education, experience into their books. And as we know, books change lives. So today is a wonderful day because I have the honor and the privilege to welcome Dr. Jeffrey Banks to the podcast. Dr. Banks is a seasoned entrepreneur and a scientist, and he has over 2 decades of experience in the pharmaceutical industry. And he's the founder of Nuventra, I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Pharma Sciences, and co-founder of First Order Pharmaceuticals. He has a wealth I can exaggerate that, like a wealth of insight when it comes to the entrepreneur journey. And I've had the honor of becoming his friend and colleague and working with him on this book. And you are going to love it. The book is called The Growth Mindset Illusion: Achieving Success as a Steady State Entrepreneur. So he really does challenge this conventional idea of growth at all costs, right? And this mentality that like bigger is better. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just push as an entrepreneur. And I have to say, this book helped me in so many ways. And I know you're going to love it as well. So without further ado, Jeff, welcome so much. And thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much. That was a great intro. Thanks for that.
So I always start from the beginning. What
Yeah.
inspired you to write The Growth Mindset Illusion? And you wanted to challenge this traditional narrative that glorifies relentless growth in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I really did. I think that's a great summary right there, is I really wanted to challenge the definition of what people might consider to be entrepreneurial success. And I think we typically equate that success with this sort of kind of mindless growth, this endless growth at all costs. And it comes at the sacrifice of our personal well-being, our relationships, our families. And it's really difficult. And I think a lot of budding entrepreneurs sort of follow this mindset blindly. This growing companies leads to this better life, this promised land, if you will. But quite honestly, it's an illusion. And that's really what the growth mindset illusion is about, is that growth in and of itself does not solve the problems that we might have in a business. Sometimes it can magnify them. It's not a cure-all. And it didn't work for me. Growth endlessly is not an ideal experience for everyone. It doesn't necessarily mean you can't grow a company. It means finding that sort of right size for you, basically.
And I love how you say too that you're not against growth per se, but it's this idea, like this resonates with me on so many levels. Like you have this, we typically as entrepreneurs, we have this constant emphasis on growth, and we get like bombarded with emails and posts and like, sponsored ads towards us. It's like 10x your business. And what I love about you and your book and your concepts here is that you're not anti-growth, but you're really emphasizing this idea of if there's a refreshing alternative, right, out there.
Right.
And there's a refreshing alternative that you don't have to put your, like, I always say, like, I'm pounding the pavement, like I'm grinding and like, in that feel that it actually feels better to back off a little and maybe not sometimes not take it on as many clients so that you can enjoy your life and you can experience more balance in your life. And in your book, you do introduce this concept of steady state entrepreneurship, which
Mhm.
I love. And it really resonates with me. Can you explain what you mean by that and how it differs from the usual grow fast or die trying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And first of all, for me, it was sort of acknowledging first that I was in a relationship with my business. And so I had to sort of treat it in that way. And it's like, the relationship could turn into a toxic relationship. It could take from you more than it gives. And so this sort of concept of steady state comes from my sort of companies, the experience I had in the companies that I built and the field that I was in called pharmacokinetics. And when we talk about steady state in that perspective, this is about how pharmaceuticals get into the body and get out and how they actually have an effect in the body to treat different diseases. You try to get to this sort of ideal point, this called steady state, where the amount of drug coming in is the same as the amount of drug going out. You're trying to maximize the effect by minimizing the side effects. And that is essentially what steady state from an entrepreneurial perspective means to me. It's about an input-output ratio. It's about balance. It's about finding the ideal entrepreneurial balance of this relationship with your business and the other relationships that you have in your life. But it comes back to this sort of notion about how do we redefine or how do we define success as an entrepreneur? And in my mind, this concept gives a license to entrepreneurs to define success based on their individual parameters, their own stage of their business, this kind of Zen zone that they get to where the amount of energy that they're putting into their business is reflected by what they get out of it. And so it's this balance, this give and take that they have with their business that I think is an ideal spot to be in and is a success in my mind. It doesn't have to be this endless growth, this continual growth to some exit. Having a business that suits your needs, that fits your lifestyle, that gives what you take from it is in my mind a success in any measure. And that's what the steady state sort of concept entails.
Oh my gosh, that's such a powerful shift in thinking. And first of all, I love that the steady state came from your background and in science. And you said, what is Zen zone? Absolutely, like that's so cool. I love this concept, and that it's all about this long-term sustainability. And I like this idea that you're bringing in well-being into an entrepreneur's life, and that it's amazing how by just rethinking success, like it's beyond just numbers, it's beyond, how much is coming in. It's like it's creating that balance, as you said, that Zen state. I love this steady state, and it really does resonate with me too. And it actually, since we've been working together and I've been reading your book, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm actually really good with how many clients I don't need, to join that 10x, that mastermind. I don't need to, it's almost like, yeah, I'm doing really good. Like how much is enough? And so I really, really value that perspective and that powerful shift in thinking.
But
So
I will
yeah,
point out
yeah.
real quick as well, it's not, as you mentioned, it's not anti-growth. And I think what the steady state concept is about finding the right size company. And so it's about rebalancing the relationship with your company at each stage, and also finding the place where you have your ideal size of company and then you stop. I think, I talk about in my book a little bit how I never really found the steady state sort of parameters for myself because I wasn't necessarily thinking about it at the time, but I might have passed through it and not realized it and gone to another state of imbalance. And so it's this sort of kind of constant sort of push and pull to find that ideal state of balance, but it can happen at any stage of a business.
Which brings me to my next question. Like in your experience, what were those key moments, like the times when you realized that chasing growth wasn't necessarily leading to greater fulfillment?
Yeah, I think the key moment for me, as I describe in the book, was when I had sort of realized that I was not on a very healthy path personally from a wellness perspective, physically sort of run down, not eating well, not sleeping well, giving too much to my business. And I ended up in the ER one evening because I had chest pains for a week from the stress of it all. And I really, to myself, I said, is this worth it? Is this really worth the stress I'm putting on myself, my relationships, to give everything? And I realized I was in this sort of toxic relationship with my business, and I had to redefine what it meant to be an entrepreneur if I was going to literally survive. And so it was just stress related, but it really changed my thinking and how I approach my business from there on out.
Oh my gosh, that's such a powerful moment. And I imagine so many other entrepreneurs can relate to these highs and lows that you're describing. And I love that you're bringing in these stories and bringing it to light, because so many times we hear about, success stories, but we don't necessarily hear the toll that they're potentially taking on people's lives. And
Right.
so thank you so much for sharing that. And that's one thing I love about your book too, is like lessons learned. And but I love that you're not like telling people like, here's how it is. It's almost like, well, here's what it was like for me, and here are the lessons that I learned. And if it can resonate with you, then wonderful. And I love that you combine your personal stories in your journey with also lessons that you learned. And then it's almost like I'm sit there in my brain, I'm like, aha, yes. And so anyone reading your book is going to, sometimes they'll probably even like speed read through and go back to those lessons learned because they're so powerful. So that's my favorite part about your book. There's so many favorite parts, but that's one of my favorite parts. So what is a favorite part about your book to you?
I think for me, I really enjoyed sort of when I was writing this book, with each chapter has a reflections in hindsight. It's I go through the story, I go through the process when I was in the moment of building the companies, and then I think about it from my perspective right now. And I really enjoyed exploring that, and what I learned from that, I think sort of kind of then permeated into the lessons learned. And if I were to do it again, I would use those lessons. And I hope that people that are starting their companies or at any point of their journey, their entrepreneurial businesses, can find some value in some of those lessons to help sort of lower the bar to achieving what they'd like to do with their business, with their life. And that was the sort of the goal of the book.
Ah, amazing. And so for entrepreneurs that are just starting out or that they are entrepreneurs, how can they embrace this balance, this steady state approach that you're talking about, from the very beginning, from the get-go? Obviously reading your book
Right?
and learning from your insights, but without feeling this pressure to scale rapidly necessarily. And just so what insights do you have for them, for the listeners?
I think at the core, fundamentally, it's about keeping this sort of concept in mind on a day in and day out basis from the perspective of trying to find that balance. Because it's very easy on a day to just be sort of pulled in different directions by the business, but it's sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, I need to take care of myself first. I have some non-negotiables in my life. I need to exercise. I have a certain time frame when I need to be with family, or I have to have good food that makes my brain work, or I have to get the sleep that I need. They sound so easy to
Yeah.
talk about, but when you're in the moment, it's hard to sort of pull yourself out and not be pulled in a different direction by the business. And so I think having that sort of mindset going into it, striving for a steady state, but not forcing it. I talk a lot about in the book about not trying to force different aspects of this journey. It's about being mindful, being aware of opportunities to move towards a better state, to move towards balance, but not forcing it. And I think that's the sort of mindset that I've now taken into whatever I do and the new ventures that I'm getting into at this point as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so insightful. And it's so easy for new entrepreneurs to get swept up in the idea of rapid growth. And but by applying this steady state mentality or mindset, it allows for more balance. And I love that idea of non-negotiables, right? And creating and you're right, it sounds so easy, but for me, it's like we were just talking about before we came on. I love
Yeah.
getting my walks in the morning. So that's non-negotiable. Like I want to get out there. I plan into my calendar. Don't let any meetings go in that way. And then I feel good all day long. And it's like a non-negotiable for me. And so it's such simple things. And I know that for me, like my dad used to say, money doesn't grow on trees. Like you got to work hard, right? And then I started making sure that, I had this mentality for so long that I have to pound the pavement, work so hard, like the harder you work, the luckier you get, kind of mentality. And so your book is so refreshing because it does show us that a more and your evidence of that it's possible, a more balanced approach can be just as fulfilling, if not more fulfilling. And so I really thank you for this focus and this new mindset and this ability to believe that we can back off on the gas a little bit and we can look at everything, and have those non-negotiables and take good care of ourselves and also have amazing connections in our life and all the good things. And so I thank you so much for all the insight. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listener?
I think it's just about enjoying the journey and not necessarily the end goal. And for me, I think when you're in that sort of state of balance, that's when the magic happens. And as I said, not trying to force it, but getting to that point, then doors open up, things happen that you weren't expecting. And I think that's sort of an underlying sort of thing I put in the book as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
Amazing. And then what about that entrepreneur that's already like, holy cow, I've scaled, I've 10x, I can't even handle this. I'm so busy. I like, oh my goodness, like, and they're feeling this burnout and they're seeking more sustainable, a more sustainable path. What advice would you give them right now?
I think it just
Read,
starts
read
with
your book.
right, read the book, but I think it just starts with baby steps. I think it's looking at the relationship that you have with your business and where you can add some other types of relationships that add balance, and just trying to seek that balance. Then it's sort of an introspective deep dive and be honest about, do you think that it's actually working for you, or is the business taking more than it's giving?
Oh, I love that. Is the business taking more than it's giving, creating that beautiful steady state? Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for being on the show. There you have
Absolutely.
it. Such an amazing book, and you're going to want to grab your copy. It is The Growth Mindset Illusion: Achieving Success as a Steady State Entrepreneur. And I love the title, love the subtitle. We did a last minute switch on the achieving success piece, which is so great because we still want to achieve success, but what does success mean to you? I love that you bring that up. So thank you so much, Jeff. I think your perspective is incredibly valuable, and I think everyone's going to want to grab a copy of your book. And I'm excited for entrepreneurs to discover that success can be reimagined, as you put it in your book, in a way that really feels truly aligned with your values and your lifestyle, that feels really good. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you.
And of course, I will provide all the show notes, how people can, in the show notes, how people can get a hold of you. I'll put a link to your book. Your book's available anywhere and everywhere books are sold. And by the time this podcast is live, so this is so exciting. Book launch next week.